And I'm going to get started because we have limited time, and we're so excited to have this presentation today. I know most of the people on the call so far. My name is Nalini Lazowitz, and I'm here today with a retired physician and member of the Quiet Communities Scientific Advisory Group, Dr. Kathleen Romito. And we're just really so excited she could join us. Thank you so much, Kathleen. Yeah,
Okay.
no, just that I've been speaking with victims of this new form of noise pollution for several years and have seen myself a lot of these comments that were part of your research. And having heard so much firsthand, I feel that this is an area of public health crises that warrants research. And so we're very grateful to you for all the work you've put in. This will be the first in the nation medical study. And so with that, I just welcome you again and look forward to your presentation.
Thank you, Nalini. And I just want to say hello to all of you on the call today. Nalini has done a great job over the last several years helping people realize that they're not alone in the challenges if you happen to live near a pickleball court. Just a little bit about myself. I am a retired family physician. I used to play pickleball. I think it's really fun. In my 30 years of practice as a physician, I never saw anything that brought such a sense of community and so much exercise and activity into so many people's lives. And so I recognize all the good things about pickleball. My home is also located just 57 feet away from 6 public courts that really started, like so many other courts, getting really busy during the pandemic. So it's been a 5-year challenge and learning process for me. They're public courts run by the city of Boise. In a nutshell, things really escalated here in my situation about 2 years ago. I've been working cooperatively with the city, kind of nudging them forward with different things that they could do. But as pickleball became more popular, things really exploded. I don't have to share my personal details. We've all lived it. I began to have some health issues that concern me, including scary nightmares involving pickleball, waking up in the middle of the night thinking I heard the noise, going outside to the courts in my bathrobe. I mean, so many of the things that have been discussed online. And at first I was curious. I'm a physician. I'm always asking questions. And then I was a bit alarmed because I recognized it wasn't normal. But I thought it was just me at first. And then once I started talking to my family members and my neighbors and people who live near courts in other parts of Boise, I recognized, wait a second, I think these could actually potentially be health concerns. And then I got on, joined the Facebook group and saw how many people were suffering from these types of issues that I thought, you know what, I'd like to just do a very early study where we start to document what's going on. And so what I'd like to do today, I've prepared some slides. And what I'd like to do is just a real quick intro for anybody who's not familiar with pickleball. We'll just go right through it. Then I want to share what we have known about noise and health for the last 25 years. So there's been a lot of research that predates pickleball. And then pickleball came on the scene. And then I'll talk about my study, what it found, what the preliminary results are showing, where we might go next with more research, how it's already being used to help decision makers come to better decisions about court placement. I'm probably going to speak for about hopefully just 20-25 minutes, and then I'd like to open it up for discussion and questions. I want to keep this as informal as possible. It's not, if you have any questions, just pop them in the chat, and I promise to get to them. I'm going to go ahead and share my share my screen. The slides will be shared with Nalini. She'll post them on the Facebook group. They'll be in the files and you can refer to them at any time. This link here is a direct link to the article at any time. It is 10 pages long and pretty researchy and academic. So we've tried to kind of button up the research in some other formats that are more usable as well. I think everybody on this call has heard pickleball, so I am not going to actually play the sounds of it. We don't need to expose ourselves to this right now, but I put the link in here so that if you have access to the slides and need a good audio of pickleball sound, in fact, I'll just play it real quick so that you can see what the site looks like. Zenodo is an academic site. The audio file is saved here. See, how do I get into it? And then you just hit the play button and you can hear. So I'm not going to, I'm not going to expose this to 30 seconds, but I want everybody to know about this resource. Zenodo is an academic site so that means that the audio is stable. Nobody can comment on it. It's a very, very neutral place to go and listen to the sound. So if you need to talk to a decision maker or share it with your community, feel free to go to this link. We all know these facts. 36 million pickleball players and growing, more than 50,000 courts. 4 courts generate over 3,000 pickleball pops per hour. It's a lot. It's a lot of pops. And this we already know too. It's in the news, more than 250 news stories, lawsuits. This is a recent article that was published in Boise, and then the hotspots that Nalini's been tracking. This is just in the upper Northeast. You are not alone. It may feel like it sometimes, but increasingly more and more people are noticing that it's a problem. We all know this. Again, these slides are here just for your use if you need to do presentations in your community. It's very common for civic leaders to interpret noise complaints as a NIMBY issue, not in my backyard. There are also more unpleasant terms that I'm sure many of you have been exposed to, but chronic noise exposure is much more than just an annoyance. Physicians and scientists have been studying it dating back to the 1980s. And unfortunately, what happened, there was a lot of research going on about noise and health. There was a lot of money appropriated to the study of this, and then it got shut down during the Reagan administration. And since then, it's been very hard to get funding for research, but lots of research going on in Europe, lots of progress as well in Australia, so we can learn a lot from those countries. This slide shows you how long this research has been going on. I want to move this. You can see that this triangle here was adapted from a research paper back in 1992. So back in 1992, we knew that, yes, noise is annoyance. It affects a lot of people. But beyond that, it can affect your health. It can cause changes in your body, and we don't exactly know what the cause is. And I will come back to that in my discussion. So just keep this orange bar in mind. We do know that noise can cause health conditions. It can cause symptoms. It can cause severe symptoms, and it can even increase your risk of a heart attack as much as high blood pressure or diabetes. It is not a minimal effect. And then real quickly, for people who haven't seen this, I'm still not on the pickleball part. I just want to talk about kind of a summary of the research up until 2023. And this comes from a really great article in the New York Times. I'd be happy to share the link with you if you can't get behind the paywall. But really quickly, I'm going to go through some slides that shows what's going on in your body when you're exposed to noise. So basically, unpleasant noise comes in through your body, and it goes to the stress detection center in the middle part of your brain. And I have this statement up here. It's all about the amygdala. The amygdala is deep within the brain, and it's really the stress control center for your body. All messages get processed through there. Your amygdala has receptors specifically for sounds and noises. You think back to before times that we lived in civilization, you wanted to hear that tree branch starting to fall. You wanted to hear the cracks and the creaks because they often represented danger. So yes, our body is built for this. If the amygdala is chronically overactivated by noise, it begins to produce harmful effects. The amygdala up in our brain can activate our endocrine system. We all know that feeling of an adrenaline rush. That's part of our endocrine system. Cortisol is also part of our endocrine system, and you may have heard of that. And these stress hormones can lead to problems, chronic problems, diabetes, weight issues, sleep problems, poor concentration. The amygdala also sets off our fight or flight response. It's called the sympathetic nervous system, and this is what makes you jump and get ready to go if there's something that your body interprets as a potential danger. And that's where you get the racing heart, the high blood pressure, which is good if you're running away from a bear. It's not so good living in a city, and over time can lead to very significant sleep problems, anxiety, and panic. So this research was all based on noise like train noise, automobile noise, and plane aviation noise. Anybody who's lived underneath an airport landing path knows it's a big deal. Pickleball is a whole different can of worms, but we have lots and lots of people out there who understand what we're going through. It's important to know, too, that the same trigger may produce a stronger response the next time the body is exposed. This is the way our body is wired. You think about a bee sting, you get a bee sting the second time, the third time. The reactions tend to get worse because your body is reacting. It's the same thing with the fight or flight response to danger. You see the snake once, you get a response. You see the snake twice, you get a stronger response. Okay, so I'm going to jump from here to talking about what's different about pickleball noise. Again, I suspect that most of the people on the phone, this is nothing new. Just to review really quickly, though, it's more than just decibels. The rest of the world has gone on and recognizes that the number of noise events are important. They recognize this in aviation research as well. The noise from pickleball can be relentless and continuous. The research from aviation tells us this is significant. It's a very short duration pop. We've all seen the discussions about impulse noise, and I'm not going to focus very much time there. We do know that for the less expensive paddles, those wood paddles that you can buy on Amazon dirt cheap, the frequency is the same as that used in backup alarms for vehicles, because and the tone used in those backup vehicles is that frequency because it catches our attention. Our bodies are wired to catch that frequency. And then this last one, I'm not going to talk about too much today, but it's huge. It's going to be the subject of the next research paper that I'm working on with somebody. And that is that the context is really important. So if you think about someone who lives under airplanes, we all know airports are noisy. We kind of feel bad for them. We wish them luck. The FAA takes them seriously. The FAA will put in triple pane windows. There's a whole culture around it. Whereas pickleball noise is new in the landscape. And many people struggle with harassment, lots of harassment, gaslighting, people minimizing the complaints, the concerns that people may have. And sometimes there's a lack of trust in decision makers, or the trust is lost during this process. And interestingly enough, that context actually plays a huge role in how our brains process a noise. So it's important to remember it's completely new. We have never been exposed to this type of popping noise over long time periods. We are indeed a science experiment. So what are neighbors reporting? these words jumped out at me as I was kind of scrolling through all the newspaper articles, Facebook, Reddit, just kind of getting a sense of what was going on out there in the landscape. And as a physician, I look at this and I'm like, hey, this is what I saw for 30 years. I saw people coming in with headaches and sleep deprivation and high blood pressure. Didn't have anybody coming in saying they felt like they were being tortured, but this caught my attention. So the question I asked for my paper is, how is chronic exposure to pickleball noise affecting the physical or mental health of residents living near courts? So I'm going to jump into my research here. And what I did, even though I talked to many people and actually interviewed a number of people to try and get my head wrapped around what direction to go here, this research does not publicly identify anybody, nor does it rely on any of those interviews or interpersonal contacts. These are all comments that came from public arenas where people were brave enough, desperate enough, angry enough to actually share some of their very personal concerns in a public arena. So it's easy sometimes for people to say, well, you don't have that many comments collected. And I will say, I think it's just the tip of the iceberg. Because it does, in this environment with harassment, gaslighting, it can be very, very hard to speak publicly about this. So before I go to the research, just take 5 or 10 seconds and think to yourself what you think may have been some of the most common concerns. And then I want to share this slide. This slide did not end up in my paper. A research paper has certain kind of academic requirements, and I had to go in a different direction, but I like this slide a lot. I mean, in some, let me say, I had close to 100 individuals and close to 250 comments that I gathered from legal filings, social media, and newspaper reports. And I just made a list of all the comments, where they came from, what part of, what city, what state, what courts, if I could, how far away were the courts from the homes. I tried to gather as much information as I could. And then I categorized them into different categories, kind of see what was most common and least common. So you can read across the bottom here. And you can see in the lower right-hand corner, I have, I said it's adapted from the POMA article. It's Proceedings of the Meetings of Acoustic Society. Because if you compare it to the article, this particular slide does not show up. I still stand by it. The categories that we see on the right did not surprise me terribly, because previous research has shown that noise can cause heart problems. In the immediate fight or flight stress response, you can get a racing heart, your blood pressure can go up, you can feel stressed. Over time, the fight or flight response, when it's chronically activated, releases inflammatory cells into your body. And over time, those chronic inflammatory cells can lead to things like heart disease and stroke. Fortunately, with pickleball noise, we're not there yet. It hasn't been around long enough. But lots of people mentioned racing heart, heart palpitations. Lots of people mentioned high blood pressure. The category of stress, if someone said it was very stressful or they used the word stress, I put them in that category. And then anxiety and depression, almost 25% of the comments, 25% of people reported symptoms of anxiety or depression, sometimes requiring medication, sometimes requiring counseling. This is not just a brief, I felt anxious for 5 minutes yesterday. There's a difference between feeling anxious and feeling depressed and having it be a transient passing feeling, and actually saying, I am anxious all the time. I'm thinking about seeing a doctor. I'm thinking about needing treatment. This is very significant. The other category that didn't surprise me that much was disrupted sleep, and we'll talk about that a little bit more. But what did surprise me is that Almost 30% of people use the word trauma or PTSD-like, and I'll discuss that. More than 40% had neurologic or auditory concerns. And then something like 43% of people had a comment that communicated severe distress. And one might say, well, that's not really a health issue. And I would back up and say, oh, yes, it is. Stress, which is lower on the scale here, stress is a health issue. As a physician, I would say 30 to 40% of my practice was dealing with people who had stress-related health effects. So when I was seeing comments relating severe distress, it was a whole different level. I thought, this is not good for our bodies. It's not good for our minds. So let's go on and talk a little bit more about trauma. More people, I think it's important to see, more people use the word trauma or PTSD than the word stress to describe their experience. So, are people actually developing real PTSD? I was listening to a podcast today where one of the podcasters was kind of naysaying or picking apart someone who had complained of PTSD, a complaint of pickleball noise, saying it caused a trauma response. He said, I'm a vet, this isn't PTSD. And I would say, as a physician, are we actually developing real PTSD? No, not yet. The term, though, is used a lot by people to describe a traumatic response. It's that feeling of being turned on all the time, kind of hypervigilant, listening or looking for when the danger is going to recur. It's waking up in the middle of the night with nightmares or dreams. It's kind of living in this heightened state of arousal. And I will talk a little bit later about the phantom pickleball pops. They may or may not be related to a potential PTSD-like response. So in real life right now, to diagnose PTSD, doctors and psychologists have a very strict definition that says you must be exposed to a potentially life-threatening event, an explosion, a car accident, a murder, something like that. Not murder, but trauma. However, trauma psychologists have looked at my data and they are concerned. They say this is some people may be having a very PTSD-like response. I know of people who have had to not only take medicine and do counseling, but actually go in for EMDR, which is a specialized counseling technique for trauma. And they've had to do it because of their exposure to pickleball noise. So trauma, I'm taking that very seriously and hoping that in the future, my psychology or psychiatry colleagues will pick up the ball and run with this one. Next one, disrupted sleep. Almost a third of people said that the noise issue is causing disrupted sleep. And the interesting thing is, why do so many people complain of sleep problems if most of the play is during the day? For some people, the courts are open very late. I know of one poor surgeon who was on call all the time, and his pickleball courts were 17 feet away from his bedroom with the lights on until 1 a.m. However, there are other parts of how our body is responding here that can cause our disrupted sleep. The fight or flight stress response releases that adrenaline and can keep us up. Interrupted sleep, insomnia, frequent awakening can also be part of a diagnosis of anxiety or a trauma response. And sometimes sleep can be interrupted as part of a phantom pickleball response. I was surprised by how many people said, yeah, I wake up in the middle of the night and I think I'm hearing pickleball pops and then my heart starts racing. What exactly is going on there? And then they can't fall back asleep. So why should we care about the sleep? Well, obviously the lack of sleep all makes us feel crummy. We can't think clearly. But just as important is chronic sleep deprivation, chronic sleep disruption can contribute to many serious health problems. I'm not going to go into detail about that. I just want you all to know. So I'm going to go on to the next highest category, which is neuro or brain, and auditory, which is hearing. What exactly is going on here? So more than 40%, more than 2 out of every 5 people who spoke about pickleball noise publicly reported some sort of neurologic concern. Things like headaches, it made my pain worse, my tremor is worse, I'm hypersensitive to sound. These are things that are going on in our brain, in our head. And the category also included phantom pops. Phantom pops were actually pretty common. I think 1 out of every 5 people who spoke publicly mentioned this. And I actually think there's a lot more people who have this, because anybody I ask about it says, oh yeah, I've got that too. Someone said, this is a quote, "It's a really scary feeling when I'm convinced I hear it and there is no one on the courts." So it's not only that you feel like you're hearing it and there's no one out there, it also induces like this, it's scary to have this going on in your head. What the heck is going on? Some sound specialists I spoke to about this said, oh, it's just kind of a mirroring. Your body hears the sound and then you can hear the noise afterwards. I'm trying to think of what the best example is. It's not coming to me now, but they said, yeah, it's not unusual for a couple minutes to hear the noise continue to ring in your head. I said, but does it wake you up at night? Do you hear it 3 months after you move away? I've spoken to at least a few people who have moved away and they still hear the phantom pops. So this is, I don't know what's going on here. I'm going to talk about it a little bit more, but if you go back to that triangle I showed you where we have annoyance at the bottom and then that next layer up was orange where it talked about physiological effects that we don't understand yet, the pickleball pops fall into that category. We do know it's a central processing issue coming from your brain rather than your ear. So how are sounds processed? You get the sound waves, and all our sound specialists like to measure the decibels, and we know there's a lot more than decibels to measure. But the really big part of what's going on here is in the human brain. And there's a lot of processing, a lot of connectivity there. You have the hearing part of your brain, you have the thinking part of your brain, you have the emotional part of your brain. And somehow in that processing center, the brain is creating this popping sound so that you think you hear it when you're not. I spoke with several specialists while I was writing the paper about this. It is possible that the phantom pops may be a type of tinnitus. And tinnitus, or tinnitus, as some people call it, is a chronic condition. It's very common, especially with chronic noise exposure, but more typically it's associated with a ringing or a buzzing in the ears. It's not the phantom pop of the pickleball pops. Spoke to a couple of tinnitus specialists who've done a lot of research on noise exposure and tinnitus, and they were intrigued, but they said, well, I don't know. The other type of brain processing issue that can create sounds that aren't really there are auditory hallucinations. So most often we think of hallucinations as seeing something that isn't there. Well, auditory hallucinations most typically are voices or music. And we commonly see it in people who have very severe mental health issues like schizophrenia or psychosis. But you can also sometimes have auditory hallucinations with PTSD or very severe stress. So if you go back to, it's all about the amygdala. One sound specialist in Australia said, once it's a trained reflex, any similar impulsive sound may trigger a conditioned response, and thus that perception of that sound. So maybe at night you're hearing the clicking of your air conditioner and it sets it off. We don't know yet how to completely explain this. And then finally, the last one, I have a feeling that most of you don't need to spend a lot of time here. Before I go on, I just want to acknowledge that if this is the first time you're hearing about the health concerns related to pickleball, it may be a little upsetting. I know as I started to put the pieces together that it was upsetting. It made me angry. It actually helped energize me to take more action. But I want to acknowledge that this may be difficult going forward. And if so, feel free to reach out to me, to Nalini, to the Facebook group, to your friends, to your family, whatever support you have. So under severe distress, and if I go back to this graph, you can see it was the highest category. 43% of people had a comment that communicated severe distress. And there were two groups here. There was about half of this group used the word torture. It feels like dripping water torture was very, very common. You can't control it. It wasn't a driving me nuts. It's not, I can't stand it. They used the term torture, communicating that the noise is unwanted, uncontrollable, and unpleasant. And believe it or not, that actually is a very kind of a layman's definition of torture used by the military. In the military, it's also intentional. And we know that communities aren't setting out to intentionally torture us, but it's not surprising that neighbors report feeling that way. And to me as a physician, that feeling is what's important, because I know it's setting off the fight or flight stress response, causing harm to my body. I shared the data with a retired Army colonel who said it reminds me of psychological operations used in times of warfare. This quote is also available in the health section of the Pickleball Noise Relief website if you ever want to use it. Psychological operations used in times of warfare. And then these are some of the other comments that I gathered. This is not your run-of-the-mill stress. So is this just the tip of the iceberg? I said earlier, I really believe it is. This type of research that I did relies on people speaking up publicly, and it requires them to speak spontaneously about their concerns. So if someone was speaking to me about my health issues, I might say, yeah, I'm not sleeping at all and I hear the phantom pops, but I'm not going to list everything else that I have. The next step with research, if someone were to pursue that, would be doing a survey and asking a large group of people, which of these symptoms are you experiencing? I think we get a more developed picture of how significantly people are being being affected. Let me go back. So what can impacted residents do? And most importantly, number one thing is to take care of yourself. Find the support you need. I know some people are not able to find it locally. In that case, reach out to the Facebook group, reach out to Nalini, reach out to me. When I was alone before I got on Facebook, I thought it was just me. Then I started talking to my husband. Then I went next door. And then I actually went across town to the pickleball courts on the other side of town that are even closer to homes than we are. And I started meeting people. I actually had someone a couple months ago come knock on my door randomly. She lives near other pickleball courts. She says, hey, I know you live pretty close. Is it affecting you? So that reaching out. I'm also going to say, Nalini says this over and over and over, keep records of everything. I am involved in a lawsuit right now with my city, and I have my records dating back 5 years, and it's a really good case, but I've kept everything. What else can you do? I'm going to assume, and I have all the links for this in the slides, I'm going to assume that most of you know about the website. The website is a really great place to get kind of baseline knowledge. Nalini does a great job of updating it. There's also a way, if you are deciding to proceed with legal action, to get connected with a legal expert who's been working at a national level like this. He helped me with my case. He's helped countless people. And he will help you if you end up working with a local lawyer in your area. He can help support you with that. If you are looking for support and connection and ongoing information, Pickleball Noise Relief Facebook group is a great place to go. Nalini, I'd like to, I'm going to share, let me go ahead and escape out of this. Nalini posted this a couple of days ago on Facebook, so it's in her files there. And this is a policy brief that it's very well written. It's a policy brief for decision makers about the health effects on nearby neighbors. And she draws on my research And really presents a very good argument. It's much more readable than an academic article. And this is something to give to HOA board members or city council representatives that goes over the research. It also has some recommendations, and I want to go over this. I'm going to make it a little bit bigger so that everybody can see it. In my research, I spoke with the head of Pickleball Sound Mitigation, Lance Willis, a number of other sound specialists. There is hardly anybody in this country anymore who's going to say pickleball courts belong within 100 feet of homes. Now, decision makers may not yet be following that, but they are now going on record saying that. I've got it in my paper. I've got the sources if you need that. For courts located between 100 and 400 feet, even USA Pickleball is saying less than 250 feet, you will need expensive barriers and limited enforced hours and mandated quiet equipment, a way to control the equipment so that it's quiet equipment. The problem is they have not yet gone on public record, but I do have citations and information that can be used. Nalini has that, she has a nice summary of it here as well. So I just want people to be aware of that. Yes, sound barriers can help. Yes, quiet equipment can help. Yes, limiting your hours can help. Maybe if you're beyond 400 feet, you do one or two at a time, see what happens. It depends on the environment. Are you in a valley? Is there water? But if you are less than 100 feet away, not much is going to help. And your decision makers need to know that. So I'm going to go ahead and close out of that. And the other thing I wanted to show you, a couple of other resources. One second. Bring this down.
We have about
Nalini,
20 minutes left. I just wanted to let you know,
okay.
Kathleen.
Nalini has also posted this infographic, which is based on the research that you can use on social media, with your neighbors, with your family. But it basically sums up my presentation in about 30 seconds. What can we do? Just like smoking areas protect others, smart court placement helps keep neighbors healthy. There are many of us in the health field who are comparing this to secondhand smoke, and it has significant health issues, and our rights to a healthy home can't be argued with. Let me go back and see. Thanks for the time check, Nalini. I think that's it. The last slide has the links to all these resources that I've shared with you. The slides will be shared on the Facebook group. You can also reach out to me at romitoresearch.org. I'll put my email in that as well. Kathleen at Romito Research. And with that, I'll go ahead and close my screen and stop sharing and see if there's discussion or comments.
I haven't seen any comments in the chat, but y'all are welcome to unmute yourself and start a conversation.
I've got a couple of questions here that I can answer. Megan asks, how do we access the hotspots map nationwide? And I can walk people through that really quickly. Actually, just go to pickleballnoiserelief.org. You can type that into your computer. And from there, Nalini, which tab is it? It's...
You know, on the very front page, it has a report your hotspot. And if you go to that, then there's the link there. And I just want to mention, sometimes people don't realize when the map opens, it's only showing a very tiny area. So you have to use your wheel or your mouse to expand it, and then you'll be able to see all of North America. Were you going to show them, Kath? Did you have any other questions, Kathleen?
Unless there are any other questions.
Oh, all righty.
I just want to thank you for your research and the presentation is so valuable for people who are up against the wall and trying to defend themselves, whether it's in court or a local HOA or in a city council, because this is a feeling of no other, that we must expand, defend it and stand together. It will only take one extraordinary lawsuit to turn the tide and get people justice and relief. So thank you again.
Thanks, Maren.
I'm going to mention that I hold a monthly support group for the last 5 months, and it's really nice to talk with a small group and what are you doing? What are you running into? And you'll see the overlap. But I have to stress that organization is the most important component of your fight. And it's hard because we're not all born lobbyists. It's not our training. But you have to, we've gone a long way to get the public to realize it's noisy. But to get the decision makers to change their mind, it's going to take a much more strategic approach of getting all of our ducks in a row, including the medical research, and finding a champion. And it doesn't have to be somebody on the council. Sometimes it could be a retired former president of Kiwanis, who is a friend of your daughter's. And here's your story. And he knows the people. He knows the whole city leadership. So you need to find people in your town that are willing to work with you and support you in your effort.
Melanie, that's great. That's great advice. I think that was my first step, is finding other people who felt the same way, who were able to help me think about how to approach this, and just recognizing that we can learn from each other, and everybody's situation is different, and there will be ups and downs in the fight. There are some days I wanted to quit. The day my Parks and Rec director said that petition you got with all those signatures doesn't matter to me at all, I was like, woo. So we're going to have different reactions from our leaders, and some leaders will be responsive and some aren't. And then you get to the point that some people have of, am I going to move or am I going to file a lawsuit? And those are really tough decisions.
I see our friend from Maui is here. Hi, Dan. Dan, I always refer to your hotspot and how you're elevated in a condo situation, and you have a piece of concrete that runs against the wall, and these impulsive pops, they bounce and ricochet from ground level right into your bedroom. Can you share and validate that for me?
Yeah, it's interesting. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, I'm actually writing a letter right now to the new president of the board. We're having a board meeting on the 17th of this month. And I'm trying to explain that to him. He doesn't actually live at this complex, but he knows it well, obviously. But the wall does protrude out 25 feet or so. It's a cement wall that faces directly to the courts. So I face the paddles as well, to compound it even worse. I'm on the 5th floor, and the backdrop is the ocean. So it's particularly when it's cloudy, it's like a speaker box, and I could be literally in my bathroom, which is on the wall side of my unit. And I can get about 55 decibels in my bathroom, and I'm 440 feet away.
I would imagine with fog, that with the water content, that also makes the travel of the sound worse. Yeah. Amazing.
The topography, the environment, it's all, just like you said a moment ago, Kathleen, that it's all different. We all have different circumstances. And that's one thing. I don't know that I've ever heard of a distance of 440 feet getting over 60 decibels before. And it's pretty intense. I mean, when the guys use the really competitive equipment, and they're not going to, bow down to anything less than what they're using now. They're just that's the way it's going to be. These guys are really competitive. And what they did was they actually closed Wailea Tennis Stadium, which was this huge active place in South Maui for pickleball, and it closed down on January 1st due to noise complaints at the condominium that's next to it. So now we get all that traffic, plus the regular traffic, and they built stands now, and there's about 100, 150 people there till about 1 o'clock in the afternoon. And it's either too hot or too windy, so I usually get a break for about an hour, and then I come back around 2 or 3 o'clock.
Many people can recognize that peace and quiet is important. I think it's better to focus on the health issues or on the legal right to be able to enjoy our properties with peace. The founder of Quiet Communities actually is involved in a lawsuit right now. And they're bringing in, I haven't looked it up, but in the preamble to the Constitution, there's actually language about domestic tranquility. And she's bringing that in as a basic right. Yes, I respect that you may want to recreate. I wish you happy recreation, but I have the right to have peace in my house, to not have a nuisance in my house. And that is a legal right in many places.
Some of the symptoms that she mentioned, did that ring a bell for you?
Yeah, this is Amy. Yeah, it totally all, rings a bell. I'm like, yep, that's me. It's interesting, here we get, oh my God, it was the train. You bought a house next to the train. Well, the train runs it's coming through right now. It's 5 minutes, 3 times a day. And it's a low rumble. It's different, right? And I knew the train was there when I bought the house. I knew the tennis courts were there when I bought the house. I bought the house knowing that I would hear people playing tennis. I'm fine with that. But this is a new noise that was not here. So when you talk about the right to enjoy my house, if I bought a house if I bought a condo on Fifth Avenue in New York, I wouldn't expect quiet because I knew that the noise was already there, right? But this is something that's been imposed upon us without our ability to choose it.
Right. And beyond that, I would go back to the fact that in the civilian world, we have not been exposed to impulsive noise for chronic time periods. We don't put shooting ranges and dog kennels, and even with dog kennels and shooting ranges, I don't know that people are exposed to it for 13 or 14 or 15 hours at a time. So yes, impulsive noise has been studied in workplace settings and occupational settings in terms of hearing loss, but it's never been studied in terms of how it's affecting us physiologically or psychologically.
Yeah. And I know the community I'm in, I flat out asked them at a board meeting, I'm like, would you license a kennel to be in that property? Would you license a shooting range? Would you license a factory? No.
Yeah.
Okay. This is no different.
Yeah.
So, yeah, but thank you so much for putting it together, and, the fight continues.
Yeah. I will also tell people that I'm happy to have you reach out to me with any questions or ideas or suggestions. As part of Quiet Communities, it's a large organization. It's kind of half scientists and researchers and half lawyers. If anybody is moving to the point in if they are taking legal action and are at the point of doing discovery and needing to find expert witnesses because you have had serious health concerns, I do know people at Quiet Connections and can help make that link.
Richard Kitt.
Yep.
Sure. Hi, Richard.
Hi. We filed suit. We've done mediation for 8 hours the first time with a HOA lawyer. Got nowhere. We hired a bulldog litigator. Okay. We filed suit. We're in the middle of doing an injunction. We're now 3 years into fighting it. They are building a Boca Paddle, Desbrook Ground, in Boca Raton, where we live. And we're in a private community just with a couple tennis courts. And now we're down to 2 pickleball courts and less time, but nobody follows the rules, so it doesn't matter. Boca Paddle just had an article that I can post on Pickleball Noise Relief, where they actually stated that they have to hire a sound engineer because they don't want the people in this 20,000 square foot or bigger facility that's going to cost $20 million because 7 of the top pickleball players in the country live in Boca Raton. They don't want that pickleball to disturb people when they're eating their lunch. So they're doing a sound study on how to limit the sound so it won't interrupt people eating their lunch. So they're admitting that they know that sound is an issue. In
Wow.
this article,
That's
the
good.
people who are building it, and they're building on a golf course near some apartments, and I don't think they realize what's going to go on. 14 courts are inside, 8 are outside. We'll let you know what's going on with our lawsuit. If anyone wants to private message me, I'm on the group. We can always communicate or help with anything we've done. But we're about to start litigation, and
Congratulations
Richard, I
on
would just
that.
second that as well for anybody who ends up contemplating litigation. After 5 years of working with our city, we tried negotiation last summer with a lawyer, and now we've hired a bulldog. And there is nothing like having a bulldog on your side. I don't know if people saw the article posted, but we actually, in our tort claim, put out a claim out there saying damages of 1.6 million.
so we gave them the opportunity to pay our legal fees and shut it down and we'll disappear, but they would not take that opportunity. And anybody who goes into litigation after an hour of mediation, if you're not getting anywhere, don't waste your money, because we went 8 hours. They used their insurance attorney and we used a private attorney, and 8 hours later we got nowhere and wouldn't accept the settlement. So if you can't get anywhere, you're going to have to do mediation first. Quit after an hour. We're not getting anywhere. If you can't get to an agreement in an hour, you're not going to.
I'm going to suggest that we do a legal focus pretty soon. And in the meantime, just to wrap up this incredible medical overview, thank you so much, Kathleen. Any parting words, last words to the group?
Oh, no. I mean, I just got to say, it's nice to actually meet some of you. Danny, I've read your messages. I'm following from, yeah. I think we just need to keep remembering, A, we're not alone, and B, the pendulum is swinging. It is swinging slowly, but it's a different environment than it was a year ago, and I don't see the pendulum going backwards. It will continue to gather speed as these big complexes go up and more people are affected, and nothing like being on the cutting edge.
It's always great to see members of our group, and thank you all for coming.
Thank you so much, Nalini. Much appreciated.
I'll see you later.
Thank you guys very much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.